Black Mirror, Season 7, Episode 4, Plaything. This is an episode with many things to talk about, and that's what we're going to do exactly in this video. If you're not subscribed, drop a sub. We've been talking about every single episode of Black Mirror Season 7 on this channel, and there's going to be much more Black Mirror and other content coming very, very soon. Spoiler warning ahead. Starting off with the story, we follow Cameron Walker throughout his life, basically, in this episode. Starting off when he's younger, working for his games company that he's part of, writing reviews of games, and then later down the line when he's played by Peter Capaldi, and he is arrested for shoplifting, but his DNA matches a previous crime from back in the day. A very subtle use of new technology there was very, very cool. They just scanned his DNA and it matched up instantaneously right there, right then, with the DNA of crimes that are relevant at the time, and one of them was the unsolved case of that suitcase having the body inside. Throughout the story, we're basically in the interrogation room, but we are hearing Cameron talk about previous incidents in the past and how he led up to this moment here. And that's basically the story. We see flashbacks and callbacks to things that he's mentioning. The main thing about this story is the game Throngs and the living digital species, the Throngs. Of course, we see some Bandersnatch characters come back, and it's Will Poulter's character, Colin Ritman, who has created a new game after all of his stuff that happened in Bandersnatch. Whatever is actually true in Bandersnatch, you know, you could pick all the different options. But anyway, we see them come back. Little subtle point here about the story. Not that I needed them loads, but I feel like they really advertised this episode to include Colin Ritman in this episode with an important role. Of course, he creates the game and it's an important role, but he's in it for 5 minutes. And I thought that was a little bit, you know, shoddy marketing, but fair enough. They knew what they were doing there. I was a little bit disappointed is basically my point that I'm making there, because I really do like Will Poulter as that character. He plays it so well. But of course, we see Cameron find out and hear them doing the noises like ha 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 ha. That's their language, the Throngs. He ends up stealing the version of the game that's on the disc, and obviously Colin Ritman goes do Lally again, and everything gets wiped. The game goes away forever. So the only surviving version of the game is that disc that he took. Of course, did they cancel the game because it was too dangerous, or was it too impactful, or, you know, did Colin Ritman take acid again and talk to the people like we saw Cameron Walker do? We don't know just yet, but of course Cameron Walker has a somewhat friend who obviously is the man that we find out is deceased in the suitcase. He comes around with loads of acid and they take it free of charge. Of course, for him in the first time, but he realized he can now communicate and understand the Throngs, and then ends up buying all the acid, tries all the acid, talks to them loads, buys loads of upgrades, giving the Throngs more ability to grow and thrive as a species. The main thing that is the change of this episode is when Lump, the guy, his somewhat friend who comes around and takes advantage of him and offers him acid, he enters his room. And in that room, he discovers the Thronglets game, and he sees the Throngs. And what you would do in any scenario when you have, you know, any sort of game is you would attack the NPCs. We all do it. And that's one of the interesting things about this episode. As a story, as a conversation, it's something we all do. Load into GTA 5. What you doing? You're punching an NPC. What you doing when you're in ChatGPT and it doesn't give you a valid response? You're getting angry at it. You know, we don't talk to digital life and think of digital life as anything to the standard of human beings, and to some degree there's nothing wrong with that. But when he literally said, Cameron Walker, as he's older, in the interrogation room, and he literally said the line, it was probably the most hard-hitting line in the whole episode. He basically says something along the lines of, we don't give any sort of care for any perceived lesser life form, and there's no perceived lesser life form than digital life. And he basically, before saying that, he said, look at the dodo, say hello to the dodo, because that's what we did for the dodo. Extinct, gone, but never forgotten. But yeah, I thought that was a really interesting concept to delve into as a story there. Of course, we see the episode develop as he obviously kills Lump, basically to prove to the Throngs that he isn't like him, and he would serve his life to them. The big twist at the end is that he writes basically down a code, a QR code that accesses the main integral system at the police station, and that allows the Throngs to send out a worldwide global message to everybody, which is just a loud noise that causes everyone to have a seizure, go on the floor, and then they wake up. But do they wake up the same? It's a very interesting story at the end. I don't know if it went over my head. Did they kill them all? I don't think they killed them all. I think there's something along the lines of they basically like entered the humans, because the whole point of it was, can this digital life, can this like better digital life than us live amongst us? And I don't know if the answer was no, they couldn't. Like, did they upload themselves into human beings? Because, you know, we get that point of view shot as Cameron Walker picks up the detective, and obviously he was just beating him up. So obviously he understands now he's a safe person to communicate to. So is it because now they're Throngs? Is it, you know, I also did, of course, it was a point of view shot. Are we now changed? Are we now what the Throngs, did the message of the Throngs get across to us, that we now as people watching it, the audience, have changed our perception of digital life? Maybe was that the deeper message there as well? I don't know. Concept. Charlie Brooker, you've done it again. I know there's other writers as well, by the way, but Charlie Brooker is the main man when it comes to Black Mirror. Digital life that's sentient is something that I think has somewhat been, you know, digital. Yeah, we've seen it. AI, things have been. This conversation has been covered in Black Mirror before, for sure. But this one did feel different, and I really did love the concept. I loved the concept in this episode. And I think it was, as I said, that scene where Lump just starts attacking them all, because it felt very relatable. It did. We literally, you can't deny, if you play games, you can't deny that you've done this as well. You've genuinely entered any free roam game. I've seen it now, the new game that's out, Schedule 1, people giving drugs to all these different characters, and then they're attacking them, and we just do that because they're NPCs. They're not real. They're AI, they're code, whatever. You know, as I said already, ChatGPT, we get onto that, you know, all these, we don't respect digital life forms because they are digital life forms. But in this example, they were sentient beings, and like something as simple as just like unaliving some was seen as a comedic joke, but with the context of what we knew about them being living digital life, it was a mass attack. It was like it was mental. Like it's quite saddening. The screams were like not just random character screams. They were living life, screaming for their lives. And he was just playing with it as like a godlike figure, just like, yeah, I'll do this, do that, do this. And I think that concept and that context to us as an audience actually was very, very interesting. There is parts of me that like I don't know if it was I didn't like it, but the concept being like the only way he fully understood them was by taking acid. I don't know if that hinders it or makes it better, because obviously he's saying that when you take the acid, it opens up all your synapses and you're more switched on. When you're watching it, it's just like, did it have to be acid as the key to be able to talk to them? So as a whole, I did like the concept a lot. But I don't know if it landed for me this episode. We're going to carry on talking though, and I'll get to my end score at the end. But of course, we go over to the characters now. I really liked Cameron Walker as a character, as a concept. As in the fact that he was the perfect person to be introduced to this life form, the Throngs. He was a recluse, he had no friends, and he found that love and that connection through the Throngs, through this digital life form. And I'm not saying this links to that, but I'm saying the idea of someone getting attached to a game like that, obviously with the extreme scenario that he has no one else really to talk to in life, but the idea of someone getting attached to that made sense to me, because like, you know how people get in love with Sims. You know, it quite literally is a Sims based type game where you have a character, you bathe them, you take them to sleep, you give them food, you take them to work, you give them exercise. You're a control of that sim. And then they have kids, and then you do the same thing for that. You know, you keep that going. So the idea that someone could love a game like that, first off, tick, it makes sense character-wise. But the fact it's him, Cameron Walker, and we know so much about him very quickly, about his character, it makes so much sense. It was interesting though, I didn't know if, as I said already, the acid, like would he have gone to the extreme without the acid and communicating with them? Would he have drilled the thing in the back of the head? Like, that was quite dark and quite grim actually. Characters as well in this episode, I didn't really care for the detective. The detective was actually quite annoying, but I think he's supposed to be annoying. I think he's supposed to represent what Cameron Walker is saying. You know, he's supposed to represent the rash, negative human attributes that we all have. The psychologist was decent, but again, not really that great. I guess the Throngs are characters in this episode, and I did like the concept of them, but as characters, I wouldn't mind it if at some point we actually heard what they were saying, the Throngs. Like, what was the message that they were giving across? If there was like a translation maybe, or something like that at the end. But characters-wise, it was okay. Cameron Walker's cool. Obviously, they bring back the Bandersnatch characters, but they're in it for 5 seconds, and then other than that, meh. Lump was really annoying. Meh. Finally, the twist. Now, what is the twist here? I really didn't know if I liked this episode, guys. I'm gonna be honest, you've probably caught my vibe a little bit throughout, but the twist, And Black Mirror doesn't need to be a twist-based show. It doesn't. It's not always like that. We already know that. It's not always like that. But there was something about this episode where was the twist at the end was that he wrote the code and then he showed it to the camera. You kind of already... Well, that was kind of a shock. It was like a QR code sort of situation where he like drew it. And then that allowed them to access the system and take over. But what did they do? Well, am I just an idiot? So what I'm doing with these videos, I'm not watching any other videos or looking into any like articles or anything to explain the episodes. I'm taking this. What you're seeing right now is my honest, raw opinion of the episodes. And when I was watching it, I thought concept was great. I loved that the fact that this digital life was real and sentient. And I liked that I felt bad for them because that means like you've done the job. I feel bad for these cute little Throngs. Like, oh, they're little cute little Throngs and he's killing them all. It was very dramatic and very sad. Traumatic as well, I should say. But I thought the twist was the fact that they access the system and then they just all have a seizure and then they wake up. Like, I would love if you go in the comments right now and just let me know what you took from this episode, because I'm seeing a lot of people enjoy it. And now I'm into games. Someone actually called me out for my top 10 Black Mirror video where they said you clearly love gaming because you put 2 gaming based episodes in there. And I do. I stream on Twitch if you want to come through, the links in the bio. But I objectively like gaming, and this one didn't hit for me as well. Other than the digital life exploration as like they're sentient and they have feelings and they're alive. Other than that, like the whole like they're gonna enter our minds and or they wanna live amongst us and they're thriving, they're growing, and it just didn't hit. It just didn't hit. The twist it was of course that they did end up accessing the thing and then causing all the humans to collapse. Of course, we know, as I mentioned before, that the humans end up waking back up because Peter Capaldi's character picks up the detective. It's a point of view camera. Like, it's a point of view framing. We are the human that is waking up after the Throngs have now implemented their message. I think it's just that we now, as the audience, have a different perception of digital life now, maybe. And we go about our interactions with that digital life differently because now the Throngs have got their message across. The message was this episode. And it's implemented into our minds now. Was that the message? Let me know if you think it is. Let me know if you don't. And did I miss the point of this episode? I think it was a miss for me. And I'm actually going to give this episode a 5.5 out of 10. And that is purely for the concept alone. Maybe it's a 6, but I'm going to stick with 5.5. That was my initial thought when I wrote it down. Especially when I compare it to what I ranked Bet Noir and things like that. That was a 7. I enjoyed that quite a bit more, like a 0.5 more than just a 1 more. I don't know. I was quite disappointed about this episode because I thought, as I said, the concept was there for the taking. I liked the fact that he was buying all these parts, you know, the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3, the Nintendo Switch. As it evolved, he was taking the parts from that, building upon it. But I just realized this. In the story, those 2 police detectives enter the house and they open the door and they see the matter technology in the room. We don't ever see anything from them again. We don't ever see anything happen. They don't report it back to the team. What was the point of that? I don't know. I feel like this episode was just like half of what I wanted it. I felt like I was edged. Basically, Black Mirror, you edged me here. I wanted to see more. Like more of what the Throngs were about. I think maybe just hearing what the Throngs message was. I don't know. The message was the episode. I think actually when I say that, it makes it a little bit better. But it still didn't hit me. It didn't make me feel anything. It had me for a bit about the digital life, like the risking in anguish, in pain and getting killed. That hit me. And then that was it. I think him killing his mate there and then was a bit too, I don't know. It took me out of it. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this episode. I'm seeing a lot of people like it. It didn't really land for me. We are, of course, going to be going through the rest of the series the rest of this week. So I'll see you tomorrow for the next episode where we go through Eulogy. Thank you for coming on through. If you're not subscribed, make sure you drop a sub right now. I've been Floppyleggs, and I'll see you when I see you.